Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back again with another video. Today I'm going to be laying some turf and showing you some tips along the way to ensure your new turf has the best possible chance of survival. I'm laying TifTuf, which matches all the other areas of my property which I've turfed today. Firstly, and perhaps most importantly, 6 months ago I had a landscaper come in and remove 200ml of the old existing soil. This soil had a fair bit of clay throughout it and would have caused problems down the track, so I had it all removed and some good quality soil come back in. Any expert will tell you, without the right soil, you're going to have problems for as long as you're persisting with it. Just pay the money and get some good quality soil. Due to the soil sitting around for 6 months, it has become very compacted as it has settled, so I will need to get back in and break this up before laying any turf. Another step I've done prior to laying any turf is to install irrigation. Now this is certainly not essential as it is only a nature strip and can be hand watered, but I know that I will likely get too busy to water it as much as I should be, and it is peace of mind that when I'm away from home the grass doesn't need to suffer because I can't water it. I would recommend for anyone that is laying some new turf or seeding an area to spend the extra money and install an irrigation system. If you are not confident on the tools, get someone to install it for you. Either way, it's money well spent, as hand watering areas takes a significant amount of time and often leads to the grass being neglected. Now, due to this soil being compacted, I've had to hire a rotary hoe to loosen the soil back up. If you're bringing in new soil, this step will not be necessary, but if you're in the same situation as me, it makes light work of what would be an extremely difficult job otherwise. I'll just touch on the process if you're laying turf over an existing area and not bringing in new soil. First step to this would be to kill off your grass. Typically, you want to do this over a 4 to 6 week period to ensure the grass you are removing is truly dead. You would want to be using a non-selective herbicide, for example Roundup, and at half the application rate. Using this at half rate ensures that all the grass roots are being killed and not just the top leaf. This is a common mistake to use it at the full rate. People think to just use more and it will kill the grass faster, but this often leaves the roots in the ground still healthy and will pop back up over time, which causes all kinds of headaches. Before I go any further, don't forget to like and subscribe. This really helps the channel and goes a long way. Next step will be to do the same as what I'm doing today. You will want to turn the soil over, ideally the top 150ml of soil, to loosen it up and provide the turf a much better chance when being laid to be able to grow in this new soil and establish its roots. Once all the soil is loose, it's time to level out the soil. This is best done with a lawn level. These can be found at most hardware stores, but if you're not keen on purchasing one of these, a rake can do the same job as well, it just won't be quite as level. When leveling, you want this to be pretty close to what you want to do, but don't stress too much as the soil is going to move around while it's settling and water is going to make it loose. To get it level, this is best done by a top dress application once the turf is starting to establish. Once you're relatively happy, it's time to start laying down some turf. Your starting point always wants to be the run where you have the longest straight line possible. As you can see, I'm working with a few curves today, but I'm using the straightest point so I can be laying down the most amount of full sheets as possible. Another important note, if you're working on a slope such as I am today, you want to lay the sheets horizontally to help mitigate the sheets sliding down the slope. Final item to consider is the pattern used. Just like bricks, turf should be laid in a stretcher bond pattern. This is to provide strength against the slopes and also offsets where each of the joints are laid to aid in recovery time. Now it's time to lay turf. Follow the steps above and get the bulk of the sheets out. Once you have laid all the sheets, you can detail the smaller areas and curves by cutting the sheets into the desired shape. I'm using an old fine-tooth saw to cut through the sheets, which work well. Once it's all laid, it's time to fertilise. I'm using the turf starter provided when I bought the turf, or any general turf starter will be fine. In addition, I'm using Oxifert. Oxifert is both a fertiliser and a weed control product that can be used when laying turf. The last thing you want to be dealing with is weeds popping up everywhere once you have laid the turf. However, if you are seeding, Oxifert cannot be used. Next up, you want to water the turf in and the fertiliser. I typically like to hand water the first time to ensure all areas are getting a nice deep soak. Whilst you are watering, you can also press gently on the turf to ensure it's getting good soil contact. If the contact is not firm, the turf will dry out and die very quickly. At this stage, if you want, you can also use a roller. Another optional step is to go through with any leftover soil and fill the gaps between the turf sheets. If you're working with curves such as I am, you're going to have gaps which are going to take a long time to fill in if you don't add soil. If you don't have soil left over, this step doesn't need to be followed, but expect a longer time for these areas to fill in. Final item I like to do is to put out some fertiliser that is targeting root development. I am using CalPro, UMX Liquid, Inoculate and Ox1. I've talked through each of these products in previous videos and will leave a link to where to find them, but essentially each of these products are putting organics back in the soil, which aids in root development to help with turf establishment. I'm also using a wetting agent to ensure that the water I'm putting out is utilised in the best possible way. Now all that's left to do is keep the water up to the turf. Generally you want to be watering 3 to 4 times a day for around 10 to 15 minutes depending on your water pressure. You are targeting to keep the soil damp at all times to ensure the roots are not drying out. Keep this up for the first 2 weeks and then back off after this to deep watering 3 times per week until the turf cannot be lifted anymore, which means it's established. Thanks for watching and catch you all on the next one.